Yeah, I think for us, it's about knowing that basketball is a game of runs, and they made their run in that third quarter, and honestly, just continue to stay composed.
No Caitlin Clark. A brutal loss the night before, and a crowd of over 20,000 expecting a historic showdown that would never happen. On paper, this game should have been a disaster for the Indiana Fever. Instead, it became something far greater. What happened inside the American Airlines Center that night wasn't just a basketball game, it was a revelation. A battle that rewrote the narrative. A moment that proved this Fever team doesn't live and die by one star. And when Aaliyah Boston stepped to the mic after the game, she said 6 words that turned everything on its head. Every game is a home game. Let's rewind. This was supposed to be the matchup. Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers. The #1 pick of 2024 facing the top pick from 2025. A game so big, the Dallas Wings moved it from their 7,000-seat arena to a 20,000-seat NBA venue. Tickets vanished. Social media exploded. It was set to be the highest-attended regular-season WNBA game in Texas history. And then, 2 nights before tip-off, disaster. Clark's groin injury flared up. Suddenly, the biggest storyline of the year was in jeopardy. Coaches, trainers, and fans waited with bated breath. But the decision was clear: Clark would not play. Her long-term health came first. The disappointment was real. Not just for the Fever. Not just for Dallas. But for the thousands who showed up to see greatness collide. And to make things worse, the Fever had just been embarrassed by the Sparks the night before. They looked completely lost without their star. Slow pace. No spacing. Poor execution. Aaliyah Boston barely touched the ball. Dallas smelled blood. This was their shot to pounce on a wounded animal. But that's where the story flips. Because instead of folding, Indiana showed up like a team on a mission. Coach Stephanie White stunned everyone by starting Ari McDonald, changing the game before it even began. What happened next? Nobody saw coming. The Fever exploded out of the gate. Fast. Relentless. Ruthless. McDonald looked like she was shot out of a cannon, pushing the pace, dropping dimes, and completely wrecking Dallas's game plan. She went perfect from the field in the first quarter. Perfect. 7 straight makes to start the game. Aaliyah Boston, thriving. With defenders stretched thin by McDonald's speed, Boston finally had room to dominate. And she did. The Fever led 33-13 after the first quarter. Let that sink in. Without Clark. On the road. On a back-to-back. Dallas fans, stunned, started applauding the basketball Indiana was playing. Kelsey Mitchell caught fire next. But it wasn't forced. It was rhythmic. Efficient. Within the system. She dropped 10 points in the first quarter and never looked back. By halftime, the message was clear. This team had heart. This team had belief. And they weren't going anywhere. But this is the WNBA. No lead is safe. The Wings punched back. Paige Bueckers turned into a one-woman storm, scoring 27 points with one of the cleanest stat lines in WNBA history. 25-plus points, 5 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 0 turnovers. The lead shrunk. Fast. The arena started.
I just want to say that Marina Mabre is a bum.
Quarter, Sheldon poked her in the eye. Again, this is something we see all the time.
Started to shift. This was the moment the Fever usually collapse. But not this time. Mitchell took control, fully. She dropped 32 points and 7 assists on 11 of 17 shooting. Clutch buckets. Smart decisions. Leadership in motion. And Aaliyah Boston, she became unstoppable. 21 points. 9 of 14 shooting. Every rebound mattered. Every defensive stop counted. When the final buzzer sounded, Indiana walked off with a 94-86 win, one that meant far more than the box score. Because they didn't just survive without Caitlin Clark. They evolved. They discovered a version of themselves that doesn't rely on a single player to carry the load. They found trust, resilience, identity. And after the game, when reporters asked Aaliyah Boston about the fans, about the moment, about how this team stayed composed, she said, "Every game is a home game." It wasn't just a soundbite. It was a statement. This team has built something that travels. A fan base that follows them into enemy territory and turns arenas into home courts. A culture that says, we're not waiting for someone to save us, we're becoming something together. Fans came to see Clark, but they left loving Mitchell, Boston, McDonald, and the system that made them click. This wasn't about one player anymore. This was about a team finding its soul. The Fever are now .500. Third in the East. 2 games behind Atlanta. 4 behind New York. The Commissioner's Cup is coming. A 5-game home stand awaits. And when Clark returns, she's walking back into a locker room that no longer doubts itself. They're not just waiting for the future anymore. They're building it. And if you've got the Fever, drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Can Indiana make a deep playoff run this year? Can this identity hold strong even with Clark back in the mix? Click subscribe. Hit the bell. Because this team just proved one thing very clearly. They're for real. The Indiana Fever were on the ropes. No Caitlin Clark. No offensive spark. And against the Dallas Wings, it showed. But while the team looked lost, one player refused to back down, Aaliyah Boston. From the jump, Boston played like she had something to prove. She battled in the paint, threw her body on the line, and took control in crunch time. The Wings kept coming, but Boston kept answering, point for point, rebound for rebound. As the Fever nearly collapsed in the final minutes, it was Boston's fire that held the team together. She barked at her teammates, stared down defenders, and reminded everyone why she was a #1 pick. Indiana may have barely survived, but make no mistake, Aaliyah Boston didn't hold back. Not tonight. Not when her team needed her most. ChatGPT said. The Indiana Fever stepped onto the court missing their biggest star. Caitlin Clark was out, and the energy felt off from the start. The Dallas Wings smelled blood in the water, and they came ready to pounce. The Fever struggled to find rhythm, their offense stalled, and the game slipped dangerously out of reach. But Aaliyah Boston wasn't about to let her team go down without a fight. With the spotlight fully on her, Boston unleashed a dominant performance, battling in the paint, crashing the boards, and muscling through defenders like a one-woman army. Every possession, every rebound, every scream after a bucket sent a message. This is my team too. The Wings kept pushing, but Boston pushed harder. And in the final minutes, when the Fever looked like they were ready to collapse, it was Boston who anchored them. Mentally, physically, and emotionally. The Fever nearly lost. But Aaliyah Boston didn't. Not her spirit. Not her will. Not her fight. And without Caitlin Clark on the floor, Boston showed exactly why she's still the heart of Indiana.